Welcome back. Today we're going to learn how to make a paperclip using a new tool called the sweep tool. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start a new document. We're going to go to New Part Standard. And once we're here, we're going to go ahead and start a new sketch just like always. Let's go ahead and click on the XY plane or the front view. So to start, what we're going to do is we're going to click our circle tool and we're going to make sure we lock the circle right onto the center. We're going to click and drag, and I'm going to type in a value of 0.05 inches. And if you're wondering why this number is so small, it's because if you look at a paperclip has a super small diameter, and that's what we're drawing right now is the diameter of our paperclip. So now we're going to finish our sketch, and we're going to do something relatively new to us. We're going to sketch on a perpendicular plane. We're going to make a second sketch, and we're going to do it on a perpendicular plane. So to get there, I'm going to go over here into my browser. I'm going to look at my origin. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to hover over my different planes. Now we just clicked on our XY plane. That's what the circle's on. I'm going to pick a plane that's perpendicular, and I'm not going to click the XZ plane. I'm going to zoom in so we can see. I'm not going to click on the XZ plane because I don't want to go up and down. I want to go forward and back. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the YZ plane, and I'm going to start a new sketch. I'm going to right click and start a new sketch on my YZ plane. And you might say, what happened to my circle? Well, what happened to my circle is now it looks like a line. Because if you look, well, I'm looking at it from the side view. I started a sketch on the side view. That's what we did. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my line tool. And I'm going to lock this line tool on directly at the center of my circle. So right on that green dot, right on that center point where we locked the circle earlier. And I'm going to draw a line. And this first line, I'm going to make sure it's horizontal. I'm going to tell it to be 0.75 inches long. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can see my line. There we go. And I'm going to right click and hit OK. Remember, you can also click escape on your keyboard to get out of the line tool. And I'm going to click my arc tool. And I'm going to start drawing the first arc of my paperclip. So I'm going to make sure it's a green dot. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag it up. I'm not going to click, but I do want to make sure it's vertical. And I'm going to type in a distance of 0.25. I'm not going to hit enter, but I am going to click. And when I click, it starts or allows me to drag out the circle. I gave the radius of my or not the radius, but I gave the length from one end of my arc to the other. But now it wants to know what the size is, how circular it'll be. And I'm going to drag out until that little tangent mark pops up. Once I see the little tangent mark pop up, I'm going to click. And so now if I pause, I don't finish my sketch. I'm going to right click and hit OK to get out of this. Or remember, you can hit escape on your keyboard. But I'm going to hit the home button. You can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm starting my line for my circle to sweep down. I'm starting to make the beginning of my paperclip. I'm starting here and I'm starting to draw this arc. So now I'm going to go back to my right view. Again, I didn't finish my sketch yet. I'm going to click on my line tool and I'm going to make sure it locks on. I don't want it to be yellow. I want it to be green. I'm going to lock it out and I'm going to drag it out. I want to make sure it's completely horizontal or at 90 degrees. And I'm going to type in a distance of 1 inch. And then I'm going to hit escape on my keyboard. Remember, I could hit right click OK instead to get out of my line tool. I'm going to click my arc tool. And I'm going to lock it onto the end of this line. Make sure it's green when you click. I'm going to drag it down. And before I click, I'm going to type in a measurement from one end of my arc to the other. I want to make sure it's completely vertical. I'm going to type in 0.32. And I could hit enter or I could click and I'm going to drag it to the left. And once it sees that, I see that tangent mark, I know I'm good. I want that tangent mark to lock on or show up right up there. Once it locks in place, I'm going to click, and I know I'm good. And now I want to get my line tool back out. If you didn't notice, there's a pattern here. I'm going to go ahead and click on this green dot, and I'm going to drag it out. And this time I'm going to tell it to be, I'm going to make sure it's horizontal. I'm going to tell it to be 1.2 inches. So I make sure it's horizontal and I type in 1.2. If you look, I messed up a little bit. Oh well, I'll right click and I'll hit OK and I'll hit Control Z on my keyboard and I will redo it. I'll hit line. I'll make sure I'm on that green dot, and again I want to make sure it's horizontal. And I'm going to type in 1.2. And now I hit my arc tool, and I'll go ahead and click drag. I want to type in, this one's going to be an arc of 0.4. I'm going to make sure it's completely vertical. 0.4. And I hit enter, and then I can drag it out, or I could have clicked, doesn't matter. And again, I want to make sure it's tangent down here. Once I see that little mark, I can click. I'll select my line tool one more time. I'm going to drag it out, and this one I'm going to tell it to be 1.2 inches. I want it to be a little bit shorter. So I'm going to tell this one to be 1.2. And then there's the shape of my paperclip. If you look at it, if I hit the home button, you can see I've made the shape of my paperclip. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to run a sweep. And you might say, well, what's a sweep? So to run a sweep, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish sketch. To run a sweep, you need 2 sketches open in your browser. The first sketch is our circle. The second sketch is our sweep, our path for our circle to sweep down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on sweep. And I'm going to select my profile first. And if you look, if you did it right, the profile should already be selected. If you look, I don't even have to click it. It's already selected for me. It's the circle. And it's asking me, what path would you like this circle to run down? Well, I'd like it to run down this path that I drew, this line. And so I'm going to click on it. And it'll run down the path. And it runs all the way down, all the way to the end. And I've got a paperclip. And that's what a sweep does. You create some random sketch to start with, some random sketch here, and then you make a perpendicular sketch on another plane and you connect them, and then you draw some path for it to go down. And you could have drawn any path. We drew a paperclip, but you could have gone some weird zigzag direction here and drawn something really, really cool. And that's how to build a paperclip with your sweep feature in Autodesk Inventor.